The lawsuit. I was put here for security. We need strong borders. We have to stop drugs and crime.
Those people who want the wall, they're not people who love this country.
It's possible that Jussie Smollett may stop cooperating with police, and police could seek an arrest warrant by taking this case to prosecutors or a grand jury.
More than 200 million Americans feeling the impact of a monster winter storm today. Nearly 1,000 flights already canceled.
Sued by Nick Salmon and his family and his lawyers, the guy from Covington High School, the Catholic school, for $250 million.
That's right. Our first two stories this morning, first about the Covington situation and then about Jussie Smollett out in Chicago. Essentially, in the rush to judgment, the mainstream media apparently got a couple of stories really wrong. Remember, the early videos showed and the story was that that young man in the MAGA cap was mocking the Native American who marched up to him, as we learned later. According to the lawsuit, the Post targeted him and bullied him because he was the white Catholic high school student wearing the MAGA cap on that field trip on January the 18th.
The lawyer gave everybody time to apologize and retract. People like the diocese that condemned him, and others, many did. The Post didn't. And here's what Salmon's saying against the Post and the reason for him going forward. He says, the Post ignored basic journalistic standards because it wanted to advance a well-known and easily documented biased agenda against President Trump. The Post bullied an innocent child with an absolute disregard for the pain and destruction its attacks would cause to his life, and I imagine he's still experiencing today.
They said the Post must be dealt with the same way every bully is dealt with, and that is hold the bully fully accountable for its wrongdoing. It goes on to say we need to teach the Post a lesson that it will never forget, and the amount, $250 million, is because that's the amount that Jeff Bezos paid for the paper, the richest man in America, it says, for the Post when his company, Nash Holdings, purchased the newspaper in 2013.
Yeah, this certainly is going to get their attention. The Washington Post has put out a statement, and they say, reviewing a copy of the lawsuit, and we plan to mount a vigorous defense. Now,
well, good job. There's a lot of video to back up what the kid did. I mean, how many angles do we see? 5 to 10.
And the lawyers put together about a 15-minute video where it's all together, and it tells a story like we've never seen before. Now, you might wonder, why are they going after the Washington Post first? Well, you know, Jeff Bezos is the richest guy in the world, and they got a beef with him. Well,
they said specifically, because the newspaper said, quote, that he accosted Phillips by swarming him in threatening and physically intimidating manner, that he blocked Phillips' path, refused to allow Phillips to retreat, taunting and dispersing indigenous crowd, engaged in racist and improper conduct.
Right, but there's a list of 50 other media figures and celebrities and media outlets and reporters and politicians who may be served with lawsuits. You got to figure that they're probably going after the Post because it's owned by the guy with the most money in the United States. And obviously, this is getting a lot of attention on this Wednesday morning.
And by the way, the people that started the hostility immediately, the black Israelites, seem to be getting a total pass. If you see some of the things that they said to start debating against these kids because they happen to be kids and white is inexcusable. I don't know why we're just allowing this to happen, but if you walk on a street corner on 42nd or 34th, you see these guys screaming at you all the time.
Once again, it was a rush to judgment to get the story out, and so many got it wrong, and that's the case in this story, too.
All right, you mentioned that story. You mentioned we have another story we're covering, the Jussie Smollett story. We have just learned the Empire actor could soon be handed an arrest warrant. That's the latest twist in the investigation into the alleged hate crime attack on Smollett.
Matt Finn is live in Chicago with new information about the actor's criminal record. Wait, he's got a criminal record, Matt?
Yes, actually, documents obtained by Fox News indicate that Smollett was convicted of a 2007 DUI in Los Angeles, in which he did plead no contest to giving false information to police. And here in Chicago, it's becoming increasingly apparent that Chicago police are trying to get a portion of this current case in front of a grand jury, whether that's to obtain a subpoena or some type of warrant. Fox News has learned that the two Osundario brothers were set to have their testimony locked in before a grand jury, but that did not happen. Two sources tell us Smollett's legal team provided some type of information that paused the grand jury process. And this morning, Chicago police are still waiting for Jussie Smollett to respond to their request for a follow-up interview since this story took a dramatic turn. Smollett's crisis manager says He did not talk to police on Monday and did not talk to them yet again on Tuesday. Also on Tuesday, Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx recused herself from this case. A statement says she might personally know some of the witnesses too well. And police also say they investigated a tip yesterday that the Osundayo brothers were seen inside of Smollett's building on the night of the alleged attack, but they ruled that tip unfounded. Brian, Ainsley, Steve.
Wow. All right. Mr. Finn, thank you very much. Apparently, according to, I think it's CBS Chicago, they say that the brothers have told the police that in addition to staging the attack, where he paid $3,500 to them and then said, okay, when you come back, I'll give you another $500. Apparently, they told the police that Jussie was involved in creating that racist letter, too, and ultimately he became disappointed it didn't make a bigger splash. And so then that's when they decided, you know what, let's do something else. Let's fake this attack.
There are reports that say that he made that whole letter and then sent it to himself where he was working on set. And so they're investigating that. They're going to the Postal Service. The FBI, is looking into that.
Federal case and local case, and just think about all the man hours and all the other crimes in Chicago they could have been working on. Meanwhile, at 7 minutes after the hour, guess what? Another FBI guy, disgraced, is on a major book tour and getting himself in trouble in the process. Reminds me, very similar to James Comey, because you can't agree with James Comey saying and agree with Andrew McCabe. You can't agree with Jim Baker and agree with James Comey and Andy McCabe. Yesterday, one of his stops was The View. Another stop was CNN, as he continues to attack the president. While his story doesn't add up, he doesn't seem to be able to remember why he was unable to tell the truth 3 times to the Inspector General. He doesn't seem to remember about an insurance plan when he went with Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. But he remembers exactly his interactions with the president. Watch.
Do you still believe the president could be a Russian asset?
I think it's possible. I think that's why we started our investigation.
Is there anything in the last 2 years that makes you less suspicious of the president?
No. Did I answer too quickly?
No.
Okay.
He said that conversation about the 25th Amendment did not represent a potential coup. He said it was not very coup-y, that conversation.
That's right. And he also didn't put it in his book. It's something that everybody's talking about, was not actually put into the book. Keep in mind, the Inspector General, who is, the guy who looks over the entire Department of Justice, he's the guy who said, you got to fire this guy because he broke all the rules. Trey Gowdy, former chairman of the House Oversight Committee, took a look at what he implied that the president could be a Russian asset, and said this on the Martha Show last night.
If thinking that Jim Comey is not a good FBI director is tantamount to being an agent of Russia, then just list all the people that are agents of Russia. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Rod Rosenstein, who wrote the memo getting rid of Comey, Michael Horowitz, who's the Inspector General. He gets rid of Comey, replaces him with a Comey acolyte who not only continues the probe, but expands it. So if his goal was to obstruct a Russia investigation, gosh, he did a terrible job of it.
And what also is very interesting, very sarcastic, I get it. The other thing that Trey Gowdy brought up on Martha's Show, which is interesting, yesterday he threw out, when I was so concerned about the president being an asset of Russia, I launched a counterintelligence investigation. And then I briefed the Gang of Eight, and they said, oh, you did? We never heard anything about that. And did they express any concern when you expressed this? He goes, nobody looked to stop me. That's just the thing. Well, he came on to say, he goes, because Devin Nunes and others, they're not allowed to talk about what the FBI briefs them with. So they can't even come back and say, he never briefed me. I did brief me. I was concerned. I wasn't concerned. So he wanted to said something that can't be challenged.
He was accused of being the source for the New York Times, and he told Meghan McCain yesterday, I was not the source.
Right.
And that's why he got fired.
And this is what I thought was the most telling. He actually called into fray the Inspector General. He says the Inspector General might, when he came out and said I lied 3 times, he might have been pressured by Jeff Sessions because the president was pressuring Jeff Sessions. The Inspector General was appointed by Barack Obama. He's never met the President of the United States. This is the first time we can remember an Inspector General's integrity being called out by Mr. Law and Order, Andy McCabe.
But as he's out there trying to sell his book that officially came out yesterday, look, it's embarrassing for him to have been fired by the FBI. And so what's he doing? He's saying, look, you know that Inspector General thing? I'm considering suing them to get my job back. Clear his name. What do you think? Email us, friends@foxnews.com. All right.
Meanwhile, we have some headlines. And Jillian is over there in her pretty yellow dress. Hey, Jillian.
And your haircut looks fantastic. And gentlemen, you always look great.
Okay,
Just,
good.
you know, throwing out the compliments. Good morning. Let's get you caught up on this Fox News alert that we're following for you. A police officer is fighting for his served as general counsel for the department. He was a partner at a Chicago-based law firm with Attorney General William Barr. Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein is expected to step down next month. President Trump wants California to give back billions from its failed bullet train project. But Democrat Governor Gavin Newsom calls the threat political retribution for its lawsuit over the emergency declaration. Newsom saying in part, quote, "We won't sit idly by. This is California's money, and we are going to fight for it." The White House says it is exploring every legal option to get back the $2.5 billion from the project. And how about this? A man attempts to make snow shoveling fun by turning it into art. Robert Greenfield recreating one of the world's most famous paintings, the Mona Lisa, on his ice rink in Toronto, Canada. The artist sharing the time-lapse video on social media saying, quote, "This is not exactly a masterpiece, but I present the Snowna Lisa." He also suggested it be placed in the igloo.
Now, he's not only a great artist.
That's good.
That's very punny.
Yes, it is. That's pretty good, though.
Have you been to the Louvre?
Yep, the igloo.
You wait in line forever. You run in. You see the Mona Lisa.
And it's like this big, and you're like,
it's teeny tiny.
However, not created with a hockey stick.
No.
That's incredible. He's very talented.
Am I the only one who didn't like the Mona Lisa? I thought it was overrated.
It was just small.
The original one or his?
I watched it. I watched it at the Louvre. The Louvre.
Watched it.
We've
You watched it like it's a movie.
All right, let me tell you what's coming up next. Thanks, Jillian. Bernie Sanders is officially back in the race.
It is time to complete that revolution and implement the vision that we fought for.
So, is the president feeling the burn? Kinda. We'll show you the president's response.
Personally, I think he missed his time. What happened to Bernie maybe was not so nice. I think he was taken advantage of. He ran great 4 years ago, and he was not treated with respect by Clinton. You got a lot of people running, but only one person's going to win. I hope you know who that person is.
So how will the American people view Bernie Sanders' idea this time around? And what will be different? Let's ask senior advisor for the Bernie Sanders presidential campaign then and now, Chuck Rocha. Chuck, first off, you have some big news in terms of how Bernie Sanders' announcement was received.
It was an amazing groundswell of support last night. I've never seen anything like it. I've been doing campaigns for 29 years. We raised over $4 million last night from hundreds of thousands of individual donors. I've talked about the problem of money in politics and fat cats on Wall Street having way too much control. When you start empowering regular people all across the country and they're giving you $5, $10, $20, it's really a big shot in the arm and a boost to any campaign. And Bernie Sanders has capitalized on that, and it just shows that his message works.
You had a much different field. Nobody cared about Governor O'Malley. Nobody cared about Lincoln Chafee. And he had an incumbent that was just basically looking to waltz through in Hillary Clinton. You already got 8 opponents already, many of which have the same policies, and they're a lot younger than your guy. What makes your guy different?
So I think I would remind all of your viewers exactly how Donald Trump won the Republican nomination when we had debates, junior debates, and field debates. We're going to have the same issue on the Democratic side. So that means that the vote is going to be split 10 ways, 15 ways, 20 ways. Well, guess which candidate has the core base of support that follows him? And I just explained to you that we raised $4 million in 24 hours or more. That's the biggest difference because all the votes are going to be split up so many ways.
So what do you think is the perfect model for him to run on, Venezuela or Cuba?
I think FDR is the best model. They called FDR a socialist for creating Social Security. And yeah, Brian, I realized we were in a depression at that time, but they also called Lyndon B. Johnson a socialist for creating Medicare. Right. We want to empower people and not empower Wall Street. And I think people, and I give Donald Trump some credit on this, like he spoke to people. He thought that people would believe in that he would actually change things. Bernie Sanders is that person who's out there with that message.
Chuck, he's not even a Democrat. He had his own reprisal to the President's State of the Union address. He doesn't even go march within those circles. Why is he even trying to? Why is the party even letting him in?
You have a great point. You know, he did a State of the Union himself to just people who subscribed to his Facebook page, and people made all of this big brouhaha. Right. It was after Stacey Abrams, who we respect immensely. Right. Bernie Sanders is a Democratic socialist, and he's been caucusing with the Democrats in the Senate for years.
All right, I guess we got to go. A lot to discuss. He has a lot of spending, a lot of giveaways, and I guess a lot of taxes going up, but the people are responding on the left. Chuck Rocha, I look forward to seeing you in that hat again soon.
Thank you, Brian.
Straight ahead. Maxine, American woman's case specifically, but says terrorists should be returned to their home countries to be prosecuted and to prevent them from returning to the battlefield. And there she is. She's got a kid. And the mother of a man beheaded by ISIS is demanding that the American ISIS bride face justice. Diane Foley says she needs to be held accountable. Listen.
Hoda and the many thousands of other ISIS fighters who have promoted terrorism need to be held accountable.
Absolutely. Journalist James Foley was beheaded by ISIS in 2014 after nearly 2 years in captivity. Ainsley, Steve.
Thanks, Brian. The media are giving fired Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe a platform to attack the current president.
We were all operating under incredible stress. We were all grappling with this idea that we have a president who we think may have committed obstruction of justice. That the president himself might, in fact, be a threat to the United States national security. You know, I was experiencing in the Oval Office some of those same things that I'd seen happen on the streets, right? I'd seen the relationship between the leader of the organization and those around him who carry out the rules.
While McCabe defends the possible illegal behavior in the FBI and the DOJ, the New York Times is calling out the president for a, quote, secretive assault on the machinery of federal law enforcement. Here to react, Republican strategist and former presidential writer for George W. Bush, Ned Ryan. Hey, Ned, good to see you.
Good to be with you guys.
So the New York Times is all in on this, but is it unusual for the president? He's defending himself against these attacks and these investigations.
Well, first of all, Ainsley, I have to point out, you know, it's pretty incredible how many in the Fourth Estate have decided to give aid and comfort to the enemies of this administration and literally just be a propaganda machine for the deep state. But they claim it's unusual for Trump to be attacking the investigations. I'll tell you what's unusual is the fact that we spun up the surveillance state in a counterintelligence operation against the sitting president of the United States based off a fake dossier. And the other thing that's really striking me is you see Andrew McCabe out there with his book tour. How bifurcated our legal system has become under these guys. Cohen, Flynn, Stone, Papadopoulos were all arrested for lying to federal investigators. Andrew McCabe lied multiple times under oath to federal investigators. He gets to start a Kickstarter campaign to fund his legal defense and do a book tour. It's insane.
Right. And in fact, now apparently he's trying to sue the Department of Justice because he was unjustly fired from his job for lying and leaking. But then, it's been so delicious in listening over the last couple of days to Mr. McCabe, Ned, just to hear him talk about, I would never leak if it weren't authorized by my job. But then you remember about how James Comey kept those documents so that he could give to his friend, the lawyer who became part of his legal defense team, so that they could give them to the New York Times and start the investigation with the special prosecutor.
Yeah, I mean, this is incredible, Steve. When you think about this whole investigation was spun up on a hoax, a lie, illegal leaks. This fake dossier, it's a foundation of error. And only in Washington, D.C., with a propaganda mainstream media, would any of this make sense. In the real world, I look at a lot of this stuff, and I think the Clintons and the DNC actually funded and facilitated a Russian misinformation campaign. When you look at Bruce Orr's testimony, that Christopher Steele's main source was an ex-Russian intelligence officer, and Fusion GPS was working for the family of a Russian oligarch the summer of 2016. This is insane. This is mind-numbingly stupid. But the thing that really is concerning to me, the DOJ and the FBI are supposed to be guardians of the rule of law, and this is one of the basic foundations of our republic. I think they've made a mockery of it, and I think they've made a mockery of the equal application of law, and that has some really serious implications for us moving forward.
And they're not supposed to be leaking to reporters, and that's exactly why he got fired. And that came down from the Inspector General. But he defended himself yesterday. He was on The View. And Meghan McCain, a lot of people on social media are saying kudos to Meghan McCain for really not holding back. Watch this exchange.
I would like you to say right here on national TV that you are not a source for the New York Times. You were never a source for the New York Times or any other publication, considering that's what you're accused of lying about. Basically, were you ever a leaker to the New York Times?
Absolutely not. No, not in any time ever.
Then why did James Comey deny the claim that he approved your leaks to the press?
I don't know why Jim Comey doesn't remember the conversations that we had in the same way that I do.
Ned?
He's a known liar. This is why Michael Horowitz, the Inspector General, recommended criminal prosecution against Andrew McCabe. And I'll say this last thing. Wait till you see the FISA report that Horowitz is going to release, I think, in April about the FISA abuses based off the fake dossier in which McCabe was also heavily involved. I think we still have a lot to really discuss and get to the bottom of what actually happened over the last couple of years.
Well, let's hope they actually are trying to get to the bottom of it with the Inspector General and Mr. Huber as well, because we'd all like some answers. All right, Ned, Ryan, thank you very much for joining us live.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Meanwhile, New York Senator Kristen Gillibrand tried connecting with voters in Iowa, but one person just not so interested.
We don't need a multi-billion-dollar wall. That wall ain't gonna stop them.
I just want to note that a lot of these people are indigenous to this land, and that border is cutting them off.
That's why the wall is so absurd and hurtful.
All this thing about seeking asylum. Now, if you don't want people coming to the border, why would you eliminate that possibility for your case to be adjudicated in country? It's about xenophobia.
Democrats are out there attacking the president for his immigration policy. Let's bring in Tommy Lahren from Fox Nation, the host of Fox Nation. Good morning to you, Tommy.
Oh, good morning, guys. I never get tired of hearing the Democrats tell us how hurtful and immoral protecting the border and national security is, but they'll continue to do it all the way into 2020.
And they're not only attacking the president, they're attacking the folks who voted for him. This is Congresswoman Maxine Waters saying that if you support the wall, you are not a patriot. Listen.
Those people who want the wall are not patriots. They're not people who love this country. They're not people who stand up for what's right.
Great speech.
Well, Mad Maxine wouldn't know patriotism if it came up in bitter square on the behind, but what could be more patriotic than protecting and securing the border and the country? Nothing. But people like Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris, they do a lot of talking about the wall and the immorality of a wall, but what they still haven't explained is how they know more about border security than the Border Patrol agents who work to protect and defend our country for a living. They still haven't explained that to us.
And, of course, don't forget, before the big vote in Washington, they said, we got to hear from all the experts. We got to hear what the experts say about a wall. All the experts came out and said, we really need a wall. But that was then and this is now. This is not hypothetical to you, Tommy, because you just returned from a wall, from a 5-part series on FoxNation.com, right?
Absolutely. You know, I had the opportunity to visit both Arizona and San Diego, and it's a part of Keep America Safe Month on Fox Nation. It's, like you said, a 5-part series, and here's a little taste of what you're going to see on Fox Nation from my trip to the border.
Have you ever climbed a 31-foot ladder and looked down? So the average human being starts getting a little queasy at about 18 feet. They just don't want to climb any higher. And it takes energy. So even if they build a 31-foot ladder, the time it takes to go up and then come back down slows them down. That gives my agents a chance to respond. And that person just exerted a lot of energy. They're a little bit slower than they were before, which makes them a little bit easier to catch.
So higher equals slower.
Well, yeah, and that was San Diego Sector Chief Rodney Scott, who I spent quite a bit of time with. And, you know, he's really the expert on border security and border enforcement.
And the others will be spotted because they're at least delayed. It's just logic.
Well, of course it's logic, and it makes all the sense in the world, and we hear a lot of Democrats talking about just putting technology. Well, technology is great, but as the border agents I spoke with told me, yeah, we can put cameras and things, but if we can't slow people down, just getting them on video isn't really that helpful. So a physical barrier is what they need, it's what they want, it's what we should give them. This isn't Donald Trump's wall, this is America's wall.
And they're building it in Texas, McAllen, Texas, starting last week. Got 22 miles from 2017 that's just being built now. Right. Tommy, thanks so much. Your series on Fox Nation is great.
Thanks so much. I hope everyone will watch it. Keep America Safe Month on Fox Nation.
That's right. Thank you very much.
That agent that she interviewed brought up a good point. I mean, you don't think about that. That's 3 stories tall that you'd have to climb.
Absolutely.
That would be pretty scary.
30 feet up. It would be like about to the top of this studio.
Right. I wasn't good at climbing the ropes in gym. I would not be good at climbing the steel slats on the border. Jillian would, though.
No, actually, Ainsley and I proved in one of those things we did outside that we could not climb the rope.
Yeah, you get to the top and your heart is racing.
If you get to the
probably,
top.
what, 15 feet?
Right.
Yes, exactly. Okay, good morning. Let's get you caught up on some of the news that we're following, starting with this. Former President Obama's proposed presidential library faces a major legal threat. A federal judge is allowing a lawsuit against the $500 million museum to move forward in Chicago. A parks advocacy group wants the court to stop the facility from being built on public land. The center was slated to open in 2021, but hasn't yet broken ground because of the ongoing litigation. In a viral campaign moment, Democratic presidential candidate Kirsten Gillibrand gets interrupted by someone who just wants some ranch dressing.
And the grassroots care about. Sorry, I'm just trying to get some ranch. Go ahead.
I mean, who doesn't love some ranch? The Iowa college student said she are completely shocked by unexpected visitors. Take a look at this incredible video.
Oh my God! Oh! Oh! Oh my God!
I mean, that's scary, but it's also really cool. 3 humpback whales making a huge splash off the coast of Hawaii. A lucky group of friends just yards away for a show that they will never forget.
I like to see where the land is. How far were they out?
Oh, I don't know.
Those whale watching tours, they go way out.
Way
They go
out.
out a couple of miles.
I'd
That's
be
cool.
fine in the boat. So majestic. But imagine swimming when a giant whale comes up next to you.
Ever since I read Moby Dick, I'm afraid to go in the water. Or afraid of whales.
Okay,
Or the Bible.
The Bible, yes.
It could be swallowed.
I don't think it was a documentary.
Oh, okay.
Meanwhile, if you look out the window, there's
coats because I am not dressed appropriately. So the next hour, you'll be seeing me in a gigantic puffy coat. Let's take a look at the temperatures because it's cold enough for snow in New York City, 17 in Buffalo, 28 in Chicago. You can see where we've got that cold air in place. And then it's going to be a transition over parts of the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast over the next several hours to a wintry mix. And that means the potential for ice and then all rain as we go into the overnight hours. So freezing rain being reported in Columbus. We've got light snow in Pittsburgh, light snow in the D.C. area. It is cloudy in Philadelphia and New York, but the snow is on the way. There's your forecast temperature radar. So D.C. around 1 p.m. it's going to transition into that icy mix. I'm glad they have shut things down there. 32 in Philadelphia, so it'll be all snow around 1 to 2. And then 3 p.m., that's where that icy mix comes in. So around 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., that's when we'll be dealing with the worst of it in terms of ice. But we are going to see several inches of snow. This is not a blockbuster storm by any means, but it is going to cause travel problems. We will certainly keep you up to date. And I'm going to go change.
Okay, come on inside.
Zip in the liner. Right. All right, meanwhile, you've heard a lot about the Green New Deal on Capitol Hill, but one state is
We're in a wild scene in our southern border overnight after an illegal cross
project half the size of Manhattan. Our next guest speaks up for her community in a new op-ed. Virginia's Green New Deal exposes what Democrats really care about, and it's not the environment. Joining us right now is Lauren DeBellis Appel. She is a freelance writer and former press secretary, press assistant to Senator Rick Santorum. Lauren, good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve.
All right.
That's right.
We've been hearing a lot about the Green New Deal with people who have presidential ambitions and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez here in New York. Tell us about the Virginia Green New Deal.
Well, what they want to do is they want to take this solar power project that, as you said, is literally half the size of Manhattan, and they want to dump it on a rural Virginia town. And you're sitting in a studio right now in Manhattan. Yeah, I don't need to tell you how large Manhattan is. You navigate it every single day. And obviously, these people have some concerns. If this goes through, this is going to be the largest solar power project on the East Coast and one of the largest in the world. They have a number of different concerns about this.
Well, let me read a line from the op-ed. So it's official. Big government liberals have made green into a one-word oxymoron. Any claim by these green dealers feigning concern about the environment is bogus. Their bluff has been called. I see in the op-ed it says a group of residents in your neck of the woods is worried that electricity prices could actually go up, which flies in the face of, wait a minute, it's renewable, it's just the sun, you'd think it would be cheaper.
Well, you would, and that's not just it. I mean, they also, it is what I said about it being an oxymoron. It's not just electricity prices. They also have other environmental concerns. Already, they've had thousands of acres of land cleared, trees cut down. They are concerned about erosion happening. They are concerned about toxic chemicals if this gets going. They're concerned about potential for fires. I mean, if this gets there, to put it in perspective, if this goes into effect, this is going to be within 50 feet of people's homes. This is on over 6,000 acres of land, 2,000 of which they can't even put solar panels on because there are streams and wetlands running through it. Virginia Department of Equality has already said that these streams are endangered. So they have a lot of different concerns for the environment.
Sure, absolutely. And the area is steeped in American history as well, and that is another one of your concerns.
Right.
By the way, we did reach out to S-Power, Sustainable Power Group. We did not hear back from them, but we did hear from you. Lauren, thank you very much for joining us from
Thanks so much.
D.C. All right, thank you. All right, meanwhile, the Trump bump is already in effect ahead of 2020, the new face of Trump's 2020 campaign.
Their neighborhood snow, and it is going viral.
Yep, and there's a lot of snow there. Joining us now is Iraq War veteran, Good Samaritan himself, Sergeant Justin Anderson, and his neighbor Noah Triggs. Welcome, guys.
Morning. How you doing?
All right. So, Sergeant, tell me why it was so important for you to hop in your track chair and help move some snow for your neighbors.
You know, honestly, it was an opportunity brought by the Independence Fund, obviously, with them donating the chair to me. And I just figured, you know, my community has really supported me through some of my different struggles, and why not give back in some way, shape, or form? And I figured this was the best way to do so.
It's really sweet of you. Noah, how did you get involved?
I saw him plowing the streets, and so I was like, you know, might as well hop on my snowblower and help him out.
Yeah. Well, you know, Justin, the sergeant was just talking about his struggles. He was wounded in Iraq in 2003. His left leg was amputated in 2014. He had brain cancer in 2013. The Independence Fund did provide you with this amazing track chair. And Sergeant, at what point did you realize, you know what, I could put a blade on the front of the track chair and essentially turn my track chair into a snow moving machine?
You know, I always have been very ingenuitive, I guess is the best word to use it. And I was like, what would make life easier for me?
Right.
So initially, I had fabricated up my own blade to mount to the chair. And then as a result of that, Action Track Chair, who made the chair that was donated to me, actually came out with their snowplow system of their own.
That's great.
And the Independence Fund was gracious enough to do some upgrades to my chair, and that new snow blade setup was one of them.
Hey, Noah, what is it like having someone so inspirational in your neighborhood? He's been through, your heart stopped, I understand, Sergeant, after you got shot. Later, you have to have your knee removed, go through brain cancer. Noah, what's it like having someone like him in your community?
Oh, it's amazing. It's always good to have positive reinforcement in the community, so it's nice having them.
And Sergeant, what has it meant to you, this community?
You know, honestly, I have a lot of admiration for Noah. It really shows how a community can come together, and how, you know, a younger generation, and now I try not to use this too much, but an older generation like myself can really, you know, come together, and age doesn't matter. It's just a sense of that camaraderie of the military community and us being able to do this together.
Well, Sergeant, you are a good representation of the military. Noah, you are just precious. You're, I guess, a teenage boy. Don't want to hear that. You are a wonderful person, and you're going to grow up to be a spectacular individual because you have a great neighbor as an influence in your life. Thank you both for being with us. God bless you.
Thank you for having us.
You bet. And by the way, the track chair did change his life. Obviously, if people would like to know more about the Independence Fund that provided it, their website, I believe, is right there, independencefund.org. Guys, thank you very much. Have a great day out there in Omaha. All right.
You have a great day.
You betcha. Thank you, sir. All right. Meanwhile, straight ahead, the Bernie Sanders campaign feeling the return of the burn. They raised more than $4 million in half a day. But how do millennials...
We want to empower people. Bernie Sanders is that person who's out there with that message.
The Washington Post being sued by Nick Sammons, the guy from Covington High School, for $250 million.
Chicago police are still waiting for Jussie Smollett to respond. It's becoming increasingly apparent that Chicago police are trying to obtain a subpoena or some type of warrant.
Who want the wall are not patriots.
What could be more patriotic than protecting and securing the border? Nothing. Mad Maxine wouldn't know patriotism if it came up in bitter square on the behind.
The 7-year-old boy is called Little Hitler for raising money for the border wall.
Are you going to stop selling?
I'm not going to stop or stand until the wall is built.
200 million Americans feeling the impact of a monster winter storm.
Nearly this race, and this time the only difference is going to be I plan on winning it. The thing that makes it very different now, there's many other people, and to his credit, that have taken up his belief that everything should be paid for. Free preschool, we heard about Elizabeth Warren talking about that, raising taxes. We have single-payer health care, Medicare for all. We hear Kamala Harris say, get rid of private insurance, let's just have single-payer. So everybody's taken a little bit of Bernie Sanders. Cory Booker wants to give you money for just being born.
Sure, because...
So this is the Bernie Sanders formula for success.
Well, we were all reacting to it yesterday, and the president reacted as well. Listen to this.
Personally, I think he missed his time. I wish Bernie well. It'll be interesting to see how he does. I think what happened to Bernie maybe was not so nice. I think he was taken advantage of. He ran great 4 years ago, and he was not treated with respect by Clinton. And that was too bad. I thought what happened to Bernie Sanders 4 years ago was quite sad as it pertains to our country. So we'll see how he does.
Well, 4 years ago, the system was rigged against Bernie and for Hillary. We all know that now. And so now what the Democrats are trying to do is, because Bernie Sanders was so effective, and you look at the dialogue on the progressive side, it's a lot about what he's been talking about over the last 4 years. They're trying to out-Bernie Bernie. And then when you look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal, which has been embraced by a lot of progressives, and Bernie Sanders likes many of the same things as well. Barney Frank, a very powerful former politician from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, says the problem is Green New Deal would be terrible for the Democrats. Listen.
I think the Green New Deal would be a loser. I do not think that people are going to be advocating that whole package. There's an argument that you don't destabilize the society by doing too much change at once, and I don't think, and partly we have people who are skeptical of government. People like me who do want to expand the government role in some areas need to understand that we have to show how that works. You have to do it in pieces, and then as you show it has worked, you can build on that.
That's the way it usually was done. But a couple of things to Bernie Sanders' credit. He made $4 million in one day, according to Chuck Rocha. He says that trounced with Kamala Harris. Fundraising. Kamala Harris, everyone was lauding her for her start. This goes way past her. I'm very curious to see what Bernie Sanders is going to be like when he starts having real opponents who hit him and say, you've accomplished nothing legislatively in your entire career. You're not really a Democrat. You're using our apparatus. You seem to be contradicting a lot of leadership. And I just think that when he has people hitting him and it's not Donald Trump, I think he's going to realize it's a brand new year.
And that everything he's proposing is going to bankrupt the government. How are we going to pay for all of this?
Well, that's it. There's a division forming in the Democratic Party where you've got moderate Democrats like Amy Klobuchar and Sherrod Brown who say, look, all these other Democrats are for health care for all. We can't do that. Right. It's got to be incremental, just like what Barney Frank said a moment ago.
Klobuchar said, I would love to wave a magic wand. I'd love to give everyone 4 years of free college. But she said, I support 2 years of community college that's free, but unfortunately we can't afford to do the 4 years.
Elizabeth Warren's still rolling out the wealth tax, and she wants to give free preschool. I like to admit something on television. I never went to preschool. And I was okay, there was just no preschool.
You started at 5?
I was willing to start a kindergarten. I think it was part-time, too. They said, you know your college, you can go home now.
Yeah, well, it's
and
not.
And ends up all right.
I think is it at all states? I know you don't have to send your kids to preschool. That's a parent's decision, but a lot of parents here in New York do twos.
Well,
I said, hey,
they were
2-year-olds? 2-year-olds. They're 2-year-old programs in New York.
I just love they interview 3-year-olds. They interviewed my son to get into preschool when he was 4, when he was 3.
This is a whole different talking point.
They've heard so much about
We need the
the
experts to tell us what we need to do as parents. Let them play. Let them have fun.
Can we go back and do preschool now?
Yeah.
Is it too late?
Well, we'll see. Another free something. But as you can hear, we have personal history where we don't quite understand it. All right. Meanwhile, this is something we do understand, and it's all about the story that captivated so many people's attentions about a month ago. It was January 18th that Covington High School was on a school trip for the March for Life, and they were standing right there, and Nathan Phillips, that Native American activist, walked right up. The rush to judgment was these young men in the MAGA hats were mocking him, and they were excoriated, the students were. Well, now, since the video has come out that has pretty much exonerated them, now Mr. Nick Sandmann's family has sued the first target, the Washington Post. They want $250 million for what they did.
They're seeking justice. They say, why that amount of money, $250 million? That's the amount that Jeff Bezos, the world's richest man, paid in cash for the Post when his company purchased the newspaper in 2013. They're trying to teach the Post a lesson, it says, and they also say the Post must be dealt with the same way every bully is dealt with, and that is to hold the bully fully accountable for its wrongdoing.
There's a lot of celebrities who jumped right on and started ridiculing these kids. I wonder if they walked it back or apologized. Could they be next? Could they be next in the crosshairs?
They were sent letters.
Yeah, here's what Sandmann wrote as part of his suit against the Post. It says the Post ignored basic journalistic standards because it wanted to advance its well-known and easily documented bias against President Trump. The Post bullied an innocent child with an absolute disregard for his pain and destruction its attacks would cause to his life. And listen, like it or not, when this kid applies to college, every time someone brings up Covington in Kentucky, everyone's gonna know exactly what everybody's talking about for the foreseeable future.
Well, $250 million, they'll probably settle, right? He'll get maybe half of that money, but he might have trouble getting a job down the road. He's got to pay his attorneys, and this is going to affect him for the rest of his life.
But I think this is the nature of the internet. There are stories out there that are true and stories that are not true. Obviously, what they're trying to do is they're trying to correct the record. Lynn Wood, his attorney, says there are over 50 celebrities, media outlets, reporters, and politicians who may be served with lawsuits as well. The Washington Post gave this statement to Fox News regarding the lawsuit. We are reviewing a copy of the lawsuit, and we plan to mount a vigorous defense. Nonetheless, what they're trying to do is clear that kid's name and the names of all the Covington students so that people know what actually happened.
Now, watch this. There's a little boy in Texas, Benton Stevens, and he's selling hot chocolate for $2 and marshmallows, and he's using that money to help build a wall. Watch.
Doing a hot chocolate stand to help Trump make the wall.
You've had a lot of supporters online and then some that kind of were against you. Are you going to stop selling your doing the stand deal, or?
I'm not going to stop the stand until the wall is built.
Okay, there you are. His parents apparently are members of the RNC, and dinner table talk has influenced young Benton. Over 2 days, he raised $1,400 to help build a wall on our southern border.
Look at Nancy Pelosi's picture on the...
Those marshmallows with Nancy Pelosi are extra, 50 cents for those. A cup of hot chocolate is $2. So far, he has raised $1,400. Some adults are happy to see him, but according to his family, some are mad, and one referred to him as Little Hitler.
Unbelievable.
That's harsh.
Between that and the MAGA attacks and the fake MAGA attacks, it's amazing what's going on.
Well, at the inauguration, apparently some women in pink accosted him and complained about his MAGA cap. But his parents say they want it to be a learning experience, figure out what politics is all about in this country.
And taking action. He wants to help.
He's raised up to $5,000 now. He's up to $5,000. Isn't there a GoFundMe page where they're trying to raise money to build the wall? I wonder how will he give that money to the GoFundMe page? Does he send it to Washington?
Good question. I think they got up to $20 million. All right. What do you think about that story where they called him Little Hitler because he was trying to raise money for a wall? Email us, friends@foxnews.com.
All right, Jillian has some headlines for us. Hey, Jillian. Good morning, and let's get you caught up on the story that we've been following for a while now out of Colorado. The fiance of a missing Colorado mom will stand trial for her murder. Crystal Kenny, a woman claiming to be Patrick Frazie's lover, tells investigators he wanted her to poison bears, not seeking confrontation, but warning the U.S. Russia will respond to weapons deployment. The tough talk comes weeks after President Trump suspended a Cold War nuclear treaty with Russia. Southwest Airlines is apologizing to travelers after canceling hundreds of flights over recent days. The airline forced to take an unusually high number of planes out of service due to a range of different maintenance issues. The company is blaming its mechanics union, which has been in really tense contract talks since 2012. Union reps say Southwest is trying to divert attention away from safety issues. Well, this could be the luckiest office in the entire country. A group of 23 workers winning the largest Mega Millions jackpot in New York history. Employees at a company on Long Island buying the winning ticket worth $437 million. They will each get nearly $8 million if it's divided evenly. Most of them plan to keep working because they say they're like a family. I wonder if it's any of your neighbors,
It's the
Brian.
Kilmeade family.
Yeah, it might be.
Long Island.
It might be.
Isn't there a story out there that they want to remain anonymous?
Maybe.
I don't know. We're going to follow up
We
on
just
that.
said Long Island family.
Joel, do you know?
Yes. We don't know who they are.
Stand by.
Come on, Joel.
All right, Joel's looking it up. All right, thanks, Jillian. All right, 12 minutes after the hour, President Trump's 2020 campaign team just added a brand new member. Kayleigh McEnany tells us about her new role with this expanding team, which was highlighted in Politico today. It's an extremely impressive organization.
And we showed you this act of kindness, a police officer leaving a $100 tip for a pregnant waitress after ordering a salad and a glass of water. That way.
Former RNC spokesperson and new National Press Secretary for the President Trump re-election cycle. And congratulations, Kayleigh. Not a surprise you're joining. But I will say this. Politico highlights this whole organization with Brad Parscale heads. Man, you're off to a great start. 30 full-time, 100 very shortly, and you've raised a lot of money.
Absolutely. Brad Parscale has made a state-of-the-art operation, world-class team. We are light years ahead of where any campaign in modern history has been in terms of fundraising, in terms of a structure. This is going to run like a well-oiled machine, and Brad Parscale deserves a lot of credit.
So what role do you think you will have? What's going to be different this time as opposed to last time?
Well, what's going to be different, I'll be overseeing all of our communications with the press in coordination with our comms director, Tim Murtaugh, and we're going toe-to-toe with the mainstream media. We're going to expose the fake news headlines, the false chyrons we see. We're going to be on offense, not defense. We're going to be out there exposing the press, attacking these Democrats, and I can guarantee you it's offensive, it's proactive, it's not reactive, and we're ready to go toe-to-toe.
And despite the shutdown, which many people blamed on the president, his numbers are beginning to climb up for his approval as he heads into this cycle. And if many people say it's a little early, well, it's not too early for the Democrats. They already basically have 9 commitments and others with exploratory committees. So has that changed your timeline at all?
No, we're ready for this. You know, of course, these cycles get earlier and earlier each time, but it's not caught us by surprise because we set this operation up long ago. So we're ready for this. And you mentioned the president's skyrocketing poll numbers. I'll tell you, I've talked with Brad Parscale about his data. I can confirm that the president's State of the Union address completely sent him soaring in the polls among swing voters. And notably, very interesting, Brad shared with me, among those who watched the president unfiltered at the State of the Union without the fake news media lens, he skyrocketed in the polls, and it's an incredible double-digit among swing voters who watched him unfiltered.
He's up from 37%, which is terrible, up to 44%, which is typical. He's got to find a way to get other people besides his base. What message can he get? Can he use? Can he actually get behind that would get moderates and independents into his corner? And he also has to go ahead and tackle women. Usually Republicans lose by 4 points. In the midterms, they lost by 15 points.
Well, I could tell you in the State of the Union, when he was talking immigration, when he was talking health care, lowering the cost of prescription drugs, on all of those counts, paid family leave, 80 to 90% support registered among swing voters. And this president, this is where the Democrats ought to be very scared. He has an unfiltered lens in these rallies to talk directly to the American people. He has an unfiltered lens in these presidential debates to talk directly to the American people. He wins when it is him unfiltered at his best. So the Democrats should be very fearful moving forward.
It's going to be very interesting because you'll have a stark contrast. Instead of what I promise, it's what I did and what I'll do. It's going to be an interesting time. The one thing is for certain, you're not going to be going by the seat of your pants this time around. It looks like the organization's beginning to set up in a very organized fashion.